how do you use your imagination to create the life that you really want? Have you tried practices like visualization or affirmations, or you've tried to use your imagination to embody the ideal outcome as if it's here now? So what does it feel like to be wealthy? What does it feel like to have your ideal partner in life, to be totally healthy? You try to embrace those things as if they're here now. You feel the frequency state of those things. You've probably experimented with these techniques, as I have, in depth. And if you're at all like me, you notice that sometimes they seem to work quite well. Sometimes they don't seem to work very well. So for a lot of us, if we're being honest, we tend to get mixed results. And a lot of people find that when they try to use their imagination, it just doesn't seem to do much for them. It doesn't feel like it has a lot of power in it for whatever reason. And I think a lot of people find that it feels fake or contrived to try to use your imagination, like to try to do this. And so we're going to hit this from a couple of hopefully very refreshing, insightful angles. I'm going to talk about my experience and what's really worked for me in this regard. And we're going to go deeper, honestly. I'm not going to hit this from the surface. This is not going to be like some Band-Aid approach you can use. It's getting into a deeper philosophy of why manifestation works and why it doesn't work. Like, what's really going on there behind the scenes? And this is a deep question. It's a loaded question because we're getting into the very nature of the creative power of existence. Why do things come into our reality the way that they do? And we need to explore that in kind of a new way here. So what I've found, and I'm going to go right into this. What I found is that the number one thing that is preventing most of us from activating the power of our imagination and really creating the life that we want is that we are lugging around this solid, false sense of self in the process. And this is the thing that is just not talked about enough. What I've discovered is that the degree to which you see through, you've transcended your false sense of self, and this is an experience you've had, it's not just an idea, that's the degree to which you activate the power of your imagination. But if there's a solid, small sense of I in there that you think is in your body that's trying to imagine, that's trying to figure out what you really want and trying to, conjure up these ideas of it's here now already and I'm trying to feel it, it's kind of obvious why the power of imagination gets blocked. So the way that you can make visualization and embodying the ideal outcome of what you want really powerful for you is to go into it with this newfound sense of spaciousness in your sense of inner being. And what I mean by that is that there's an infinite intelligence that is shaping itself into the appearance of what you call yourself, your identity, and your circumstances. So it's there behind the scenes, orchestrating all the different details and dynamics of your life. And you are a character in a story. And in that story, you have desires, you have authentic desires, genuine desires that are very important for you to actualize in this life. There's no doubt about that. That's what makes for any good story, is that the main character has burning desires to achieve, to overcome, to create more than is here now. So as you stop lugging around this false sense of self, what that really means is you're no longer bound up by limiting beliefs, unconscious habitual patterns, fear, doubt, self-loathing, anger. And it's not that these things never pop into your mind. It's not like you're just completely 100% free of them. It's just that fundamentally, you're not attached to them anymore. You see through them. You see through directly into the illusory nature of what we call negative emotions that largely comprise our limited sense of self. So this is a big subject, and I can't go into a ton of detail here because it would take me hours. But if you hang out on this channel, if you subscribe, we'll be hitting this theme of intentional life creation from this perspective, which I think is very different than so much of what's out there. That it's all premised upon not having a solid self. That's the gateway into activating the power of attraction, the power of imagination. So what happens is when you start to use your imagination in this new way, You're quite literally experiencing the practice or the process as this infinite intelligence shaping into the appearance of what you're imagining, rather than it's you in there, this solid, separate self doing it that's trying to figure it out or thinks it can fail at it or judges yourself or sometimes isn't even really sure what it wants. It just is kind of like, well, yeah, I guess being rich would be awesome, so let's put that into the mental equation. Or I guess I want true love. I guess I'll go for that. Or maybe I just want to lose 20 pounds. I'll put that into my little want on my want list and try to visualize it. So this is the game we tend to play from the solid, small selves point of view. We tend to be conflicted about what we really want, and we think it's us in there creating this. We think it's like this egoic personality construct that is designing all this and that is shaping itself into this. Like we're the ones, the character, the personality that has the creative power. And that's just not true. It's not you in a separate, solid self sense that has the power here. It's this infinite life force that's shaping itself behind the scenes of your life. So when you start imagining from that place, it's an entirely different ballgame. And it makes sense. It's obvious why that would activate the power of what you're imagining. So what happens, once again, when you start to work with your mind from this new expanded perspective is there's a very deep realization that starts to inevitably occur that you can't really screw any of this up. You can't really get off track. What appears to be failure or not getting the things you want is all written into your story from infinite intelligence. It's shaping itself into these story dynamics to make your story interesting. Now, to make a story interesting, it's not always getting what we want. It's not always what we would prefer. Because then, honestly, if we're brutally honest, that would actually be boring. We don't, in our heart of hearts, want predictability and certainty that we can always get what we want. What we really want in our spirit is an adventure. We actually, in our heart, embrace the unknown, the uncertainty of life. And so from this expanded perspective, there's an awareness of that when you go into manifesting. It creates a lot of space around attachment to outcomes. And it's the attachment to the outcomes that blocks so many of us from actually getting what we want. And that's, of course, premised upon a lack-based view of ourselves. If we think something is inherently missing right now, and we need more money or a partner or to lose weight or whatever it is to become more whole, we're operating from a place of lack, which fuels neediness, needy energy, which of course blocks the power of manifestation, blocks the power of your imagination. So what I invite you to do, there's no real right or wrong way to do this. There's no real technique you use to do what I'm talking about. It's beyond techniques. It's just listening to these kinds of words and letting them get implanted into your nervous system, letting them ripple through in a very positive way, so that you start to naturally sink into a more truthful relationship with who you really are. That's what really makes the difference here. And that's the beauty of it. You don't need to try so hard. You don't need to technique your way there. There's this innate intelligence operating, this infinite intelligence operating behind the scenes of your life that is shaping itself into all that you see. And there's an innate perfection in that. It doesn't make mistakes. It's infinitely intelligent and infinitely powerful. Now, you from the personality point of view can look at what's created sometimes and say, oh no, that's definitely a mistake. That one, that circumstance was definitely off track. But that's just the small self talking for the most part. What shows up in our lives is always what's meant to show up in our lives, and we actually can't screw that up in an ultimate sense. Now, if you start to embrace that in your heart, it is the most relieving and liberating truism that you can kind of sink into. It just frees you up to not be so attached to any of this, to not be so heavy about it, or to feel needy so much of the time around what you want. And you start to really sink into the truth that right now, in this moment, there's a perfection operating. And that's what abundance is. It's realizing the truth of your actual existence and who you really are. And so getting what you think you want is just icing on the cake. It's not going to make you a better person necessarily. It's not going to make you happier. It's just fun. It's fun. It's fun to play with different dynamics in life. In terms of getting more and expanding and creating more abundance. It's fun. It's an enjoyable way to live as long as you don't stay attached to it too much or take it too seriously. And ironically, when you're having more fun doing this and you're experiencing yourself as already whole now because you are infinite intelligence, that's who you really are, it activates the power of your imagination on a whole new level. It makes sense, right? It's like kind of right in front of our faces, but for most of us, the obvious, what's hiding in plain sight, tends to be the easiest to overlook. I've certainly noticed that myself. So once again, there's nothing you need to do with this information per se. It's just let it ripple through. Let it do what it will. What happens more on this path that you'll be learning about on my channel is that the infinite intelligence that is shaping itself into you starts to work on you more than you working on it. So instead of you trying to figure it out so much and thinking it's up to you to get it all kind of dialed in and working, it starts to become more obvious that it is behind the scenes shaping itself, and you can't really get off track from that. And that relief starts to sink in, that spaciousness, and that's when things start to move. That's where the magic starts to happen. It's all in this shift of perspective of who you are. Stop lugging around the solid, separate sense of self. Stop thinking that there's something in the future that's going to make you more worthy than you are right now. And allow yourself the supreme gift of sinking into the inherent divine perfection of your life as it is right now, even with what you'd call all of its messiness, its flaws, problems. Underlying all that, showering all of that, surrounding all of that is love, is perfection, is divine abundance. And we're going to do our best on this channel here to keep your consciousness focused in that direction, because that's, once again, where the magic happens. So I hope you've enjoyed these thoughts. I hope they're different and they're a little deeper, maybe a little more refreshing than what you typically hear about this subject. But this truly has been the missing link in my life and for so many of the people I've worked with. So if you'd like to learn more about this and dive deeper with me, be sure to subscribe to the channel, turn on that bell notification so you're notified of new videos. And yeah, check out what else is here. There's a lot of content that I'm exploring in terms of different themes of life related to this topic of no longer lugging around the solid self and what that entails and creates in your life. It's a total game changer. It's just that most people aren't willing to trade in their sense of certainty and the fear of the unknown for the power that they can activate by doing so. It's too scary, it feels too threatening, and that's what I want to help guide you through, because that's what I've been able to mostly do in my own life and for so many of the clients that I'm working with. So it's a very different approach here, and I think one that you'll find profoundly life-changing. So be sure to subscribe, check out other videos. I'll leave it at that. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.